Hey everybody, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host Mike, and with me as always is Evan.
Yep, I'm here. And here's the other army that gets to have Gaze of the Gods, which I didn't mention when we talked about Beastmen, but the Gaze of the Gods table, oh my god, it is insane. Especially when the way I was
Yes.
rolling during PSO. You're just like, okay, so my Beast Lord's strength 8. Um, he has 9 attacks. Okay.
But that's a different video. That's the Beastmen. We're not here to talk about Beastmen. We are here to talk about Warriors of Chaos, the proper Chaos army list. I know the Beastmen
For
players
men
like,
without
what are you
chest hair.
talking about, Mike?
The people with chest hair like Beastmen.
I'm sure there's plenty of chest hair on Chaos Warriors. That being said, in this video series, we're just doing some quick highlights, talk about what we believe are some of the biggest changes going through each army faction and the roster list from the 1.5 updates, because, oh boy, has it changed the game, and really excited to talk about at least what we've perceived in the last few events that we've run, seeing the impact on the table. So let's dive in, Evan, and let's talk about Warriors of Chaos.
Okay.
All right, so starting from the top, I think first and foremost, the biggest thing to address is our favorite Lord and Savior, the Chaos Lord on Dragon. Unfortunately, he got hit with that cap of only 25% with your match play guide of the army. Again, this isn't specific to 1.5, but we are seeing our community and all the other communities out there seem to be embracing the match play guide from GW, and it does cap 25% of your total points allowed to be spent on a character. So in the average 2,000 point game, it means your Chaos Lord on Dragon with all the offensive weapons and all the defensive weapons and all the chaos marks and upgrades you can no longer afford. He got hit the biggest with this because he was the most powerful thing in the game before this change. So you can still take a Chaos Lord on the Dragon, but he's not going to have anything. And so that really changes a whole bunch. In particular, he was such a centerpiece for the army. He was so central because he could kill basically anything out there on the tabletop. The only things that really threatened him before were things that had the Monster Slayer killer, right? But still, you had your ward save, so there was still a chance that it wouldn't happen, or you could do so much damage you could potentially kill that opponent before he could ever swing at your Chaos Lord. So that's no longer the case, and so that's a big change. It's not just a big change to just this character; it's the ripple effect and how it affects the rest of your army. Because now that he's no longer this anchor that you're building your army around, you really have to rethink army composition. And it is interesting. I don't think the Chaos Warrior players out there, at least certainly in our local community, have really adapted yet to this change. We actually saw a lot of them for the moment, at least in the recent, switch over to some of their other favorite armies, Beastmen, High Elves, other things, Tomb King, so forth and so on. I think they're just recuperating, recalculating what is the best or what's the new version of the Warrior Chaos list, because they do have to reinvent themselves. This is, I think, the biggest and foremost change. So before we go further down the list, Evan, what's your big perception on that you've seen?
So first of all, with the match play guide, they did open up the option to go, okay, well, instead of the single 600 point Dragon Lord who gets beaten on combat res, what if I just take the 2 Dragon Lords? And they gave Warriors of Chaos the option to do this by giving the Exalted Champion the option.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And look, toughness 5 on your dragon, it's not amazing, but you can probably make up for that pretty easily by having the regen from Crown of Everlasting Conquest. So at
Mm-hmm.
least one of them is pretty dang durable. And maybe give the
Mm-hmm.
other one the Ogre Blade, and now you've got some incredibly scary dudes. There's still
Yeah.
9 wounds, even if they are toughness
Mm-hmm.
5. And guess what?
Yep.
What happens when both of them charge the same target?
Yeah, still very, very powerful. So I think that's the biggest thing. So not only are we saying, hey, now that the Chaos Lord of the character cap is something you have to be careful about, it's now like we never saw Exalted Champions before. We just didn't see them hit the table. I think we are going to see them a lot more now. They still have phenomenal stats. They still have stats comparable to some of the best characters in some of the other lists, and you can still mount them on a whole bunch of great mounts, and they're still very powerful on a demonic mount or a chaos steed, even save some points. But as Evan said, they do allow you to put them on dragons now, right? So I think there is a whole new potential out there of seeing more cost effective but not unkillable and not can kill everything automatically dragons with Exalted Champions on them. I think we're going to see more of that. And I think what also goes hand in hand to that too is also the Ogre Blades, right? Ogre Blades, it sounds like, hey, it affected everybody, and it did, but it was a go-to auto take for the Chaos Lords in particular. Now, you can still take the Ogre Blade, but that 15-point difference now, in particular with the character cap, you're just not going to get, I have all the offense and all the defense I want. You're really going to have to pick and choose. Either I really am going to make this character to hit as hard as he possibly can hit, or I want to make him significantly more about defense and maybe give him a great weapon instead, which we see a lot of characters doing. Or maybe you have to go a little bit half and half. But either way, he's going to have some weaknesses, and I think that actually is very healthy for the game, both for you and your opponent. So there's some pretty big changes right there out of the gate, and I think this affects the Warriors of Chaos more so than it has the other armies.
That's true, but at least the Warriors Chaos still have the option to bring an Ogre Blade when pretty much everyone else doesn't, because if they do, they have like no other defense. So
Yeah.
that
That's
is
true. They still have the chaos armor, right? So they still have rocking that. Depending on whether you're taking the Exalted or whether you're taking the Lord, right? That 4-up or 5-up relative to the base armor save, but it has the built-in 5-up ward save on both of those characters. So that is a huge benefit that Warriors of Chaos get that the other factions don't. Is almost every other faction has to go buy a talisman of protection or a different way to get a ward save. Well, they have one baked in. So that is one. It is more meaningful of an advantage now than it was before because of that points cap.
yes. So I'm assuming what's next on this list here is that the actual Warriors of Chaos, the core unit, is a lot better. I mean, it
Oh,
benefits from basically every single one of the infantry changes. So first of all, hand weapon shield with heavy armor gives you an incredible armor save when you're trying not to die. And then
mm-hmm,
Warriors of Chaos for 1 point can buy a halberd. So then
mm-hmm.
whenever they are going to do a charge, you could have pull out your halberd and have an AP2 strength 5 attack, which is I mean, that's pretty scary into a lot of things. Like if you're going to charge into like some knights who overran or got too close to you, and you can just have both of these options so that when you get charged, parry. When you're charging, halberd. I think that's pretty great, and they're
Oh,
relatively
yeah.
cheap for having weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4 on a very now good armor save in combat, which was their problem
Yeah, and
before, I think.
that's exactly right. And I think that's the biggest benefit. And I love these changes. I think all the Warriors of Chaos players are rejoicing. It's the army is called Warriors of Chaos, and we weren't seeing Warriors of Chaos hit the tabletop. You are going to see a ton of them now. I think actually probably what's slowing people up is like, oh, I need to go build
Yeah,
or
true,
actually
true.
paint up my Warriors of Chaos. I think that's what holding people back. I think there are absolutely new lists we never saw before where you could have 2 to 3 large block Chaos Warriors, and that's totally viable. And I'm really excited to see what those are going to do to mix things up and to just change the strategy. So they benefit from, as Evan said, the armor save. They're benefiting from the combat resolution. They can hold their ground. They can absorb things, and they can still punch really, really hard. And Warriors of Chaos, again, they're core units, so you're not restricted to just taking one. You can take multiples of them and fill up your core with them. But a big benefit too that they get versus a lot of the other elite, because most of the elite infantry out there in the game, like, hey, they have either really, really good offense or they have pretty good defense, or they have really good stats, like I have strength 4, toughness 4, but they don't have the weapon skill. Warriors of Chaos pretty much get it all. They have pretty much for an elite infantry, especially for core, the best stat line in the game. Rocking weapon skills 5 is fantastic with the armor, with the options for, I think, for point, they are the most efficient core elite infantry that are in the game. And I'm really excited to see a lot of them hit the table.
Well, and just to compare them, right? The other really good core elite infantry in the game are Graveguard, who are exactly the same stats pretty much in every way except lower weapon skill, and
But you're only taking one
yeah, and then
in a core
Longbeards.
slot.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then there's Longbeards, who are very, very similar except for having slower movement. So again,
And
if
Black Orcs.
yeah, if and then Black Arcs, and then the Black Arcs don't get to have a 2+ on their parry. So if they're doing hand weapon shield, they have the same save now as Warrior Chaos when they're parrying. So I mean,
Hmm.
if we're talking about the other heavy infantry in the game, now the Warriors of Chaos kind of rack up pretty good against those other options, and for a relatively similar price point, and they can be even more customized. I think that the thing that I was arguing with people for a long time was, so you can put any kind of character you want in there with the Enchanting Aura, and then you have guys on there, if you have Warriors of Chaos with Initiative 4 base, and you have, let's say, Marcus Lanesh, then you're Initiative 5, and anyone who charged you is Initiative 4 at the absolute most from the front. So you can
Hmm.
just fight before the people who charged you if you have Enchanting Aura and Marcus Lanesh. So that's interesting. Another incredible option, I think, is to just go Mark and Nurgle, and you're harder to hit, and you have Fleshy Abundance as a spell that you could try to cast and keep those guys at toughness 5. If you're playing against anyone who just decided not to bring any wizards, well, it might be pretty hard for them to dispel things like Fleshy Abundance if you just,
Hmm.
walking around and being incredibly durable. And toughness 5 infantry, oh boy.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this more as we go to the wizard bunkers and other thing below. But I think the biggest difference is there were so many cool combos with beefing up, enhancing your core bricks of infantry before, or debuffing opponents who were in base-to-base contact with you. And basically, you were just never seeing this on the tabletop because the basic core infantry weren't competitive. Now that they are very competitive now, I think all of a sudden, Warriors of Chaos players should re-go through their book, relook at those character combos, relook at those demonic gifts, relook at demonology, demonology, relook at those other things, and I think we're going to see a lot more combos that have been there the whole time, but are extremely potent now with the 1.5 updates. And it starts with the basic Wars of Chaos, which is great to see. So yeah, so that's the Wars of Chaos. Now, something else too is Chariots, Chariots, Chariots. This is something that near dear to my heart. I started actually with my Wars of Chaos army focusing on Chariots. I love them. They're so cool. Converted up a whole bunch of Chariots. Now, they don't get the benefit unless you're taking again one of the Armies of Infantry or Arcane Journal lists in terms of them being core, but they still have the Wars of Chaos Chariot is one of the best chariots in the game in terms of its raw stats, its toughness, very high toughness,
Yeah.
wounds, armor save. It has Warriors of Chaos on top of it. It has Chaos
Mhm.
Steeds on top of it. It hits like a truck, and it's very durable, and it's fantastic. And I think, again, what's one of the best units in the game that can really bolster or countercharge or be near your Warriors of Chaos bricks to support them, it's Chariots. They're fantastic at this, and the Warriors of Chaos Chariots are a huge part of that. So again, before, they weren't quite there because they couldn't really keep up with your cavalry or your flying monsters or your giant spawns that were just going to go so much faster because they don't have the Swiss stride because they're heavy chariots. But now that you have blocks of infantry that are going to be in combat for several rounds of fighting the enemy as they're duking it back and forth, chariots are going to play a much bigger role going forward.
Yeah, I am very jealous of those Chaos Chariots whenever I'm playing as my Creation War Host, where I have chariots that cost the same number of points, but have a worse armor save and worse toughness.
Mm-hmm. That was
So,
because they don't worship the chaos god, so maybe they should rethink about
yeah.
that.
Well, then they can eat my
Yeah.
AP3 axe.
That hurts for sure. All right, so then another thing to talk about is the armies of infantry, infamy. So these are something again. I encourage everybody to relook at. There are some, wolves of the sea were already really exciting before. A lot of people were playing them. I think they're more interesting now, in particular with the blocks of infantry. We should retake a look at the knight list that they have in there. I think that is very very exciting now too with some of the changes. And it's not that the knights per se got better. It's just that the way the dynamic of 1.5 is shifting the meta, and a lot of the things that were predator units, dragons and other things that were just too powerful to take out the knights. Um, I think they're a lot more viable now. And let's just jump ahead too. Let's just talk about Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights getting countercharge. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, GW. It felt like this was an oversight because almost every other heavy cavalry or most cavalry units in the game, right, medium to heavy cavalry, have countercharge in the game. And it was a huge problem that they didn't have countercharge because, again, this is a core unit. And in terms of raw stats, they have the best raw stats of a core cavalry unit in the game. But because you didn't have countercharge, you were just getting outclassed by the other cavalry units that were out there, and particularly the elite ones that were just countercharging you, and it was a huge problem. And so this is just a straight buff. They didn't have to pay more points. You don't have to do anything else. Now, I don't know if it was always intentional to be, or if it was just an oversight, but either way, they have corrected it, and I think we're going to see a lot more Chaos Knights on the table, hitting the table going forward, which is great because those models, in particular the AOS ones, the newer ones, are so amazing. I want to see those on the table all the time, and I want to see people paint them up.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it was intentional to leave that out because Chaos Knights as a core unit seemed potentially like too powerful compared with like only the Strength 3, Toughness 3, Empire Knights or Silver Helms, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. However,
Yep.
the fact that they now actually get to have countercharge makes them like actually viable as a unit. Where I think previously, especially the way Warriors Chaos played, where they didn't have a lot of shooting, so they kind of just have to run forwards into enemy charge ranges and just brawl people, right? So having no counter to them made them almost impossible to bring as a unit. And you would just have like, well, I'm just not bringing that. That's just not going to happen, which sucks. I think that's not great.
Yeah.
That the chosen knights were the only thing that could even show up to the table. So it's kind of like a core ingredient to that kind of unit to make them function. And it's perfectly happy having that in there. I do think, however, that maybe Silverhelm should have it, even though I'm kind of annoyed with how good they are already. Um, it's just that now Silverhelms are literally the only knights in the entire game that now don't have it, other than Black Knights. But those guys are undead, so they suck. So whatever.
Nonsense. Black Knights are amazing. But yet again, maybe we'll see that in the future. But I think the biggest difference is Countercharge is such an awesome, exciting addition that they added to Warhammer the Old World versus previous editions of the game that didn't have it. It's fun. It's dynamic. It makes it feel like two cavalry facing off, and it just feels right, and it's awesome, and it's great. But now it is also very effective, and so if you don't have it, right, it feels very off-putting. So I think now you don't expect that on the light cavalry, the fast cavalry that are running around, but certainly on your melee focused cavalry, right? If you're getting lances and things, and you're wearing armor, so you're kind of that
Mm-hmm.
medium heavy cavalry range. It really needs countercharge to be effective. So you can stand your ground, which again is a huge factor in threat ranges in terms of I am here, you need to respect this cavalry unit that's in front of you. If they don't have counter charge and you do, you don't have to respect them, right? So it really feels like it's very important for that board control, that threat range balance for both of those heavy and medium range cavalry units to have counter charge. So very happy to see them on the Chaos Knights. I think we're going to see a lot more of them on the table going forward.
Pistoliers
Um,
have countercharge, Mike.
Let's not talk about that. It's a different thing. That's okay. They could countercharge me all they want. Skin Wolves. So this wasn't really a change. This was really more of a clarification, but it is worth pointing it out because some of the players in our Old World Legends FAQ, we did errata it that you could not use the Skin Wolf changing buff for your characters that were joining the unit, even though Raw technically it's a special rule and they could use it. We always believed that was rules as intended. That was not intended, but there are a good number of communities out there who it's nothing wrong. They play the rules rule as written, and so they were allowing them to do that. So this is a change that for those communities out there who were allowing that to happen, that it's very clarified. No, this was not intended. They formally made it very clear you cannot get that buff. So skin wolves are still very good. They're still very powerful, and you could still have your character on your demonic mount join them and everything. But any characters that joining them are not going to benefit from that skin changing buffs. So that is a change for the people who are putting them in their list.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is probably a little bit more worth talking about is the magic missile spam. So let's talk about this before. So this goes right into demonology. These are really tied together. So really before, one of, if not the most effective ways to run Warriors of Chaos before is with your magic missile bunkers or your magic missile spam, where you were taking battle magic and you were taking, fireball, and you
Blue
were
fire.
then blue fire with Mark of Zinch, right? And then you would try and take the Ruby Ring of Ruin, right? And all of a sudden, now whether it was on a wizard, a sorcerer who was in a unit, or whether you're a demon prince, right? You were just spamming as many magic missiles as you could, which was fairly effective, right? Until you got tagged in combat, and then womp womp, that got turned off. But still, if you didn't get tagged in combat, very, very effective. And that is not gone per se. You can still do it, but it's not so easy to do it anymore in terms of, right, as Evan said before, right, we know that magic missiles, many spells did get reduced in how difficult they are to cast because wizards only have +1 or +2 to cast now. But so
Yeah.
missiles are effectively harder to cast because you do not have a +2 or +4 to cast them anymore for respective level 2 or level 4. So that's a big difference. They are while they didn't change, they are harder to cast. Ruby Ring of Ruin is no longer an auto take in my opinion because that is now actually harder to cast as a bound spell. So you have one less plus to cast that. So it's just not nearly as reliable as it used to be. That +1 difference or one less than it was before is a huge difference in how reliable it is for where it is on the spellcasting side of things. So those changes right there are fairly massive to just make it so they're just not nearly as effective. On top of which, now we're going to start seeing a lot more big bricks of infantry on the table. We're already starting to see it. And magic missile spam is really good for taking out like elite things or less wound things. But when you start running into things that have 30 wounds, 40 wounds and such, all of a sudden it's really not the best option. And now that with the vortexes have gotten so significantly better, you really need to double think, is magic missile, or certainly doubling down or tripling down a magic missile, is that the right answer? Or should I really be looking at some other vortexes or perhaps demonology? So why don't we talk about that, Evan?
Yeah, so I mean, this is just a spell lore that people have been aware of for a long time, especially because Demonic Vessel looked like one of the best spells in the game when people first read the rules. Being able to
Mm-hmm.
have extra attack, extra strength, extra AP on literally every single guy's attacks in your unit just
Yeah,
makes any unit in the game turn into a blender. I mean, even if you're just using Clan Rats, if they're strength 4, AP 1 with 2 attacks each, that's pretty freaking
it's
good.
huge.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. However, this rule or this just fell apart completely against one specific thing: character on a dragon. Because if they charge you and they issue a challenge, because they just get to do that, or if you charge them with your demonic vessel, then either you accept with your wizard, right? Or you accept with just a unit champion who doesn't get to. That's only one guy now. With, like, let's say they have 2 attacks now.
Yep.
That's not going to
Yep.
do very much. Or you
No,
refuse the challenge, and then they get to pick your wizard to go to the back, and that whole spell just turned off, and then you lose
that
combat
does.
by 7, and you get broken and flake because you had terror, and you're on -1 to break and test, and it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
why did I spend 500 points to try to make this happen? But
Mm-hmm.
now that the static combat res makes, really shifted in the other direction, you can
Oh yeah.
bring a block of troops, use demonology to use Steed of Shadows to fly them around, and demonic vessel to make them really, really sturdy. I think those are the 2 key spells. You do extra damage. And look, if you have to fight a dragon, you don't even need to do any damage. You probably have outnumber, close order, a couple ranks, and you're already on +5 before they even start, and they don't have close order anymore. So the break point in order to beat them in combat is lower, and the challenge capping out after you get killed, so you don't actually get the max overkill every single time, means that you can pretty consistently just say, sure, charge my unit if you want. As long as it's only that one dragon, you're fine, right? So
Yep.
I think Wars of Chaos can do this. Basically, every single army that has the option to take demonology can consider doing this. So Skaven, you can do it with the Storm Vermin. Wars of Chaos, you can do it with Warriors of Chaos. You can do it with you can do it with your Knights, for example. You have a little less of the static combat res, and you can't use Steed Shadows, but you're also just really fast all the time now,
Yep.
right? And you know what? The other really cool thing about having enchantment spells is you can cast on yourself, so there's no magic resistance. So if you're trying to spam magic missiles and everyone else in the game is going, well, I guess I'm just going to buy magic resistance now. Not only do you not have the +4 to cast that you used to, or +5 with Siege, but the other person might be giving you minuses to cast because they actually decided to spend points on magic resistance. Right?
Yeah, I think that what's going along with that too is not just that the plus to cast, but um, I think the biggest thing is the dispel too. Now, this was again specifically part of the problems before. You were trying to buff yourself or buff a unit, or you want your wizard to get into combat. It's like, well, I'm in combat, I can't dispel anything anymore. Suddenly, that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for two reasons. Primarily because you were always kind of forced to take that level 4 to be able to dispel your opponent's level 4. So you're really locked into that. So you were never seeing taking. It was rare to take a level 1 or a level 2 just for dispels, right? Dispel monkey to help you or support you. Now that you no longer are locked into that level 4, suddenly you can see, and we are seeing those level 1s and level 2s, so you can have more dispel outside of just your one level 4 major dispel brick. So that's a huge change. Also, now that you can dispel things that target your caster or that target his unit when they're in combat, that is huge, absolutely huge. Not for every army, but it's absolutely huge for the wizards that want to get into combat. And Beastmen is one of them with their shamans, but definitely the sorcerers of chaos are another one who want to get into combat. And I think before you were never seeing those melee focus sorcerers of chaos or demon princes who wanted to get in combat because their magic and their dispelling just got shut down so easily. Now that that's totally viable, that you can do that, I think there's a whole new set of lists that we haven't even thought of yet, that the community and the meta just hasn't seen yet or hasn't figured out yet. And I'm really excited, more excited for Warriors of Chaos than honestly have been since the release of the edition. I'm more excited than I have been for Warriors of Chaos since the Arcane Journal releases. I think just the fact that you can make a melee focused wizard and he's not just can't dispel. You can take those level 1s now. They are very meaningful because they have phenomenal stats and they have armor and they can have these fantastic with demonology buffs. And you're in these bricks of Chaos Warriors now. I think it's a whole new lease on life for Warriors of Chaos. I think they are actually one of the armies that are affected more so than I think any other army with the 1.5 update. And I'm excited to see what they're going to put on the battlefield.
Yeah, and I will say that, Mike, there is a good chance that the Warriors of Chaos players out there are actually scrambling to paint their regular Warriors of Chaos and try to buy some of these other units. They're going to replace some of their like Forsaken and things like that were just filling up their core slots before. And now it's like, maybe I'm going to bring actual units and play like a real person.
Absolutely, and there's one more bonus one that isn't written here yet, but we did talk about at the beginning. Let's talk about Gaze of the Gods for the moment, for just a little bit.
Sure.
So it's not that Gaze of the Gods got better, but Stupidity became so punishing, and quite frankly, it needed to be. Stupidity before they've nerfed Stupidity twice or made it punishing twice now. The latest one is huge. If you fail the Stupidity test, you're in trouble. You're not controlling objectives. You're not charging. You're not moving. You're not casting spells. You're not shooting. You are just sitting there, and you are in huge trouble. And so, whether it's a Chaos Lord, a Sorcerer Lord, and whether you're Beastmen or Warriors of Chaos, the fact that Gaze of the Gods, if you are stupid and you fail the Stupidity test now, it is so punishing. You need to think twice just before every single turn. Of course, a true follower of Chaos would roll on it every single turn, no matter what. But you're definitely going to see a lot more of those. Make sure you take your rerolls and such. So again, the fact that Stupidity got hit so hard, it is very, very punishing now. And let's just say the more savvy generals are going to think twice before just automatically rolling on Gaze of the Gods every turn.
I won't. I'm still doing it.
As a true follower of Chaos, shouldn't care about that. Awesome. So very excited for Warriors of Chaos. That's kind of our 1.5 take on what we've seen. Evan, any last thoughts?
There's one last thing, possibly elephant in the room that we missed is
what do you got?
The Infernal Puppet.
The Infernal Puppet. Really? So, okay. So why is it nerfed into the ground? Let's walk us through that, because it's still viable. You can still take it, but what's the problem?
The primary reason is the range at which it projected. The 20 range was stupidly enormous, but 15 is just barely ever going to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's barely going to do anything depending on where you are placing your wizards. Because before, your wizards were staying back, and your wizards wanted to do their magic missile bunker, and your wizards didn't want to get tagged into combat because they couldn't dispel. So,
Yes.
yes, I do agree this is a huge positive change. It is the most powerful anti magic item in the entire game. Nothing comes even close without question. And so, at 24-inch range, if you put your wizard basically at the center of the board but holding back, he zoned pretty much the entire board. It was a pretty much oppressive. So I'm very glad that they saw that changed and updated. Even though I was a cast player, I'm sad that it got nerfed. But now it means I have to shove my wizard much closer to my opponent. But again, I still think it's viable to take it. I still certainly will probably take it on one of my casters, but it's no longer as powerful as it used to be.
All right, and just so you guys know, there are a ton of really juicy arcane items in the Warriors of Chaos Arcane Journal that now that you're not so obligatorily obliged to take Infernal Puppet on every single game, maybe go look there. Like there's ones where you get to have all 4 of the Lore of Chaos
I
magic,
love that one.
spells. There's ones where you get to have like every spell from your lore, including the signature spell. You can only cast some of them, but you still get to know all of them. That's kind of fun.
Mhm.
Like there's some really cool arcane items in there, especially for like for example Demon Prince.
Yep, I so I really encourage you exactly right. Go through your book with a new lens, a fresh take on life with Wars of Chaos. I think we're going to see a lot more interesting lists. I think this list out of everything got the biggest shakeup because the auto take Chaos Lord is now out. He's no longer the auto take. Now you have a whole bunch more options, but so many more things are viable now, and the combos are viable now that weren't before. So we're really excited about that. All right. So again, if you can think of anything else, please do let us know in the notes, in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What have you seen in your meta? What have you seen with your Wars of Chaos list? What are you working on? Please let us know. Evan.
Yeah, and also just if you like the content, you watched this much of it, you probably did. So if you could leave the like on the video or comment and tell us more about what else you want to see, that would be really useful for us. And you can always jump into the Discord and talk to us there. Our Discord link's in the description.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. We'll see you all next time.